non-essentials. Now that's an interesting philosophy, but how do you do it from a practical standpoint? Let me suggest that there are at least two ways. One way is to look at what we call the 80-20 rule. The 80-20 rule. More appropriately, that's Pareto's principle. Many years ago, Pareto said, in any group of items, there will be a small percentage of the items that account for a large percentage of the value. The rest of the items account for a very small percentage of the value. You know that's true in your own organization. You think about the products or services that you provide. Probably your profitability comes primarily from a relatively small amount of items. Or you think about the people that you manage. And certainly there are a number of them that come to the top, and a very small percentage of them that get the greatest amount of work done. But nowhere is that principle, that 80-20 principle, more operative than in your own use of time as a manager. You see, I challenge you, if you kept track on a minute-by-minute basis and then analyzed, I think you would find that 20% of the time that you spent during the day accounted for 80% of your value. You want to be more effective? Simply analyze your day tomorrow and make sure you spend more time doing those things that are getting the greater value. There's a second way that you can eliminate non-essentials from your life. Do we have any perfectionists in the room, other than myself? I see a lot of people raising their hand. I see a few people pointing at other people, so I know there are perfectionists in here. We have a problem. We perfectionists do. We want to do it right, don't we? There's a law called Parkinson's Law, which says work expands to the time available for its completion. Now that causes us perfectionists problems, because what we do is we say, well, it's got to be perfect. You know, I want to make sure that this note-taking guide is perfect. I want to make sure that this presentation is perfect, and we allow an awfully lot of time. And what happens to the work? It expands to the amount of time available for its completion. If you are a perfectionist, follow the perfectionist rule. The perfectionist rule says simply, do it in 50% of the time. Or do it in something significantly less than what you think it will take you. You know, that works. I remember a number of years ago, I was developing my first program in the time management area. And I realized there were going to be 12 lessons in that program, and I wrote lesson 1. And I won't tell you how long it took me to write lesson 1, but I'll tell you this, if it took me that long to write the rest of the lessons, I wouldn't have the program done today. I said, wait a minute, Jim, you got to start applying some of the principles that you're teaching. So I applied the perfectionist principle. I said, lesson 2 you're going to do in 50% of the time. I got it done in 50% of the time. Was it up to my standards? No. I'll admit it was not quite up to my standards. But the next day I stepped back and I looked at lesson 2 and I said, wait a minute, all I need to do is rearrange this a little bit, change that, and with a little bit more time, I got it up to those standards. And it was a lot less time than it took me. And I did that with every single succeeding lesson, and I found that if we force ourselves, we perfectionists, force ourselves to get it done in less time, it can make all the difference in the world. Principle number 4. Control paperwork. Oh, a management's nightmare. Paperwork. I don't know about for you. It's not the in basket or the out basket that gives me a problem. It's that not quite in and not quite out basket. And what do you do with that? And paperwork gets all over the place. Now, if there was one, you know what I'm talking about, huh? If there was one principle that we would say that would apply to all handling of paperwork, what would it be? I'd suggest that it be handle each piece of paper only once, whenever possible. Obviously, there are some situations where you can't, but handle each, make that a rule in your life. Handle each piece of paper only once. If you follow that simple rule, it will provide great dividends for you in handling paperwork. Let me suggest that there's a way that you can look at that. I think in terms of my paperwork as a 3-pile or a 3-category system. Now the first pile, and actually I'm not talking about putting them in piles, but the first category is what I call those things that you can take action on immediately. What should you do with those things? Take action on them immediately and have yourself in an environment when you do. Sometimes I don't look at the mail first thing in the morning or the incoming paperwork. I'll do it at a time when I can concentrate, when I can accomplish what I want, when I can dictate if that's what's required, when I can write a hand note if that would be more practical back to the individual, where I could pick up the telephone and respond to them, so that in every case where I can possibly do it, those things that can be handled only once are handled. Now I realize that some of your incoming paperwork doesn't fall into that category. There's a second category, and that we'd call the pending category. Perhaps you get a letter or a memo that requires the meeting that's going to take place next week before you can respond to it. In that situation, what you want to do is have your systems set up so that that goes into an appropriate pending file, and somewhere on your calendaring system, whatever it is that you use, a note is made so that next Thursday, following that meeting, you then know where to get that letter and properly respond to it. But you see, it's not set over here on your desk to create another pile and to create litter, and you're going to try to remember that it's over there. No, you've got a system that enables you to handle that. The third category is the category that ought to go immediately into the basket. Now, you know, that's one of the most difficult categories, however, isn't it? Because you say to yourself, wait a minute, just might need that sometime. Aha, I know you, don't I? Yeah, I feel the same way. Several years ago, I found an additional suggestion that's helped me very much in that area. It's called a pending drawer. A pending drawer. That's exactly for those items that you say, you know, maybe I might need that, but it's not worth taking the time to file it someplace. But I don't want to throw it away because of the anxiety it would cause me if I throw it away. So you have one drawer in your desk or in your credenza that you have my permission not to throw it in the basket or to file it because it takes too much time to file. You can throw it in there, and you know that if you ever really need it, it's in there. You know what happens? About once a month,